If you've ever woken up in the middle of the night because you're too hot, you've probably done what most people do. You kick off the blankets, you flip your pillow over to the cool side, turn the thermostat down, maybe you even point a fan directly at your bed. The problem is, none of that actually cools you. They mostly cool the air around you. The Chilipad 2.0 takes a completely different approach. Instead of trying to cool your bedroom, it actually cools the surface that you're sleeping on by circulating temperature-controlled water through a thin layer beneath your sheets. It can also warm the bed during colder months, giving you a temperature regulating range from 55 to 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Now that sounds good in theory, right? But does it actually work? Hey everyone, I'm Tom from Sleep Foundation, and today we're reviewing the Chilipad 2.0. We're gonna cover what you get in the box, walk through the setup, show how everything goes together, talk about who the system is really designed for, and of course, we'll look at how it actually performs. Now, before we start installing everything, it's helpful to understand what you're actually buying. The Chilipad 2.0 is a water-based temperature regulation system for your bed. There are four main components. First off is the dock. Think of this as like the engine of the whole system. This is where water is cooled or heated before being pumped through the mattress cover. Second is the Hydrolayer. This is a thin water channel that sits inside the mattress cover, and it's responsible for delivering the temperature across the surface of your bed. Third is the performance cover. Unlike earlier versions, this cover is modular, machine washable, and includes built-in waterproof protection to help protect your mattress while also holding that Hydrolayer in place. And then finally, there's this new bedside remote. This is probably one of the biggest upgrades with the 2.0. You don't have to rely entirely on your app anymore. You can simply reach over, twist the dial, and adjust the temperature without unlocking your phone in the middle of the night. The remote also displays your target temperature, room conditions, and can automatically pair with the dock during setup. More on this later though. One important thing to understand is that you can purchase the Chilipad 2.0 in either a single zone or a dual zone configuration, depending on whether it's for one sleeper or two. Now, if you go with that single zone setup, you get one dock, one Hydrolayer, and one control system. If you upgrade to the dual zone setup for two sleepers, you're essentially getting two independent systems side by side. So that includes two docks, two Hydrolayers, one single performance cover, and the ability for each person to set their own temperature independently. Well, let's unbox this thing and start putting it together. When opening the Chilipad 2.0, everything feels pretty organized. You'll find the performance cover, the dock systems themselves, the Hydrolayers, and then you're also gonna find the water hose, the power supply, remote, system cleaner, and all of the instructions you'll need to get started. One thing I immediately notice is that it just looks and feels like a premium product. The connectors feel solid, the tubing feels durable, and nothing really gives off that lightweight or flimsy impression you might sometimes get with sleep accessories. Even the dock itself, it has this clean and minimal design that feels more like a modern home device than a traditional bed cooling system. The remote looks and feels a lot like one of those Google Nest thermostats. It has a circular display and a rotating outer dial that you twist to adjust the temperature. And while most of the system ends up hidden under your bed or sheets, I can say that the overall aesthetic and build quality definitely stand out. The Chilipad goes directly on top of your mattress, right underneath your fitted sheet. You want to start by taking the performance cover and stretching it over your mattress, just like you would any fitted sheet. The cover is designed to fit most mattresses between about 10 and 16 inches thick, so it should work with the majority of today's mattresses. Make sure the cover is centered on the mattress and position the hose opening on the side where you plan to place the docks. That can either be at the head or the foot of the bed. Now for our purposes, we like the positioning at the foot of the bed. The docks are either tucked underneath the frame or right in front, but this is likely going to depend on where your frame is, how much clearance you have, or just your own personal preference. Now this is where the setup becomes a little different than other cooling mattress pads. Instead of everything being permanently sewn together, the Chilipad 2.0 has a removable Hydrolayer. So what that means is the system comes separated. You're gonna have to install it. All you have to do is unzip one side of the cover, lay the Hydrolayer flat inside. Make sure to take your time smoothing everything out so there aren't any folds or wrinkles. Once it's positioned correctly, you're gonna use these included S-hooks to secure it inside the cover. It sounds a little bit more complicated than it actually is, but that being said, I'll say the entire process might take you about 15 to 20 minutes the first time you put it all together. Now, once it's installed and then tightened accordingly, it should stay in place. This design also means that if you ever need to wash the cover, you don't have to wash the channels themselves. You just remove the Hydrolayer first. That's a nice improvement over older integrated systems. After everything is secured, zip the cover closed. Now you have what looks like just a premium cooling topper. Next, you connect the water hose. You're going to feed the hose through the opening in the side of the cover until it reaches the Hydrolayer connection. The quick connect fitting should snap firmly into place. Then connect the other end of the hose to the dock. Everything clicks into place where it's supposed to, making the setup pretty straightforward. Now, like we mentioned before, you can place the docks wherever you plan to use them. I'd argue that underneath the bed is the ideal spot since it keeps everything neatly out of sight. The dock itself is about 6.5 inches tall though, so if your bed frame doesn't have enough clearance, you're likely going to need to place it beside the foot of your bed or next to your nightstand. Now that's probably the biggest downside for some people. If your room is tight on space, you'll have to think about where those docks are going to live so they're not sticking out into a walkway where you could accidentally bump into them. But if you do have a little extra space beside the bed, it's usually not much of an issue. Fortunately, the included hose is about 8 feet long, so you do have some flexibility with where you place it. Just be mindful of where you route the hose so it doesn't cross a walkway and become something for you or your partner to trip over. If you need even more reach though, the brand also sells a 3-foot extension hose. Realistically though, this isn't unique to the Chilipad. Any water-based bed cooling system, whether it is this Chilipad, 8 Sleep, or any other competitor, is gonna have some type of control unit that needs to live somewhere beside or underneath your bed. Now with that sorted, you're ready to plug everything in and power up the system. Once you turn on the dock, you're gonna need to fill the water reservoir. The brand recommends adding 1 packet of the included system cleaner before filling it with distilled water. In total, the system typically requires about 1 gallon of distilled water per dock to completely fill and prime the Hydrolayer. So it's a good idea to have that on hand before you begin. Distilled water helps reduce mineral buildup inside the system over time. Then slowly fill the reservoir. As the system begins priming, water will start moving into the Hydrolayer, and you'll probably start noticing the water level dropping. That's completely normal. Simply continue adding distilled water until the display indicates that the Hydrolayer is completely full. Once that's finished, the hard part is over. The dock will begin its startup sequence, and from there, you're gonna pair the included bedside remote. This is actually one of my favorite additions to the Chilipad 2.0. With previous generations, most of your controls lived inside the Chilipad app, and while that app is still available and offers a ton of customization, having a dedicated remote by your bed means you don't have to reach for your phone every time you wanna make a quick adjustment. Let's say you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and you feel a little too warm. Instead of grabbing your phone, opening an app, waiting for it to connect, and then changing the temperature, who wants to do that when they're tired already, you can simply reach over, turn the dial a few clicks, and go right back to sleep. If you decide to use the Chilipad app, you're gonna unlock even more features. You can create automatic temperature schedules that change throughout the night. For example, say you want the bed to feel cooler while you're first falling asleep, since our core body temperature naturally drops as we transition to sleep anyway. Then, later in the night or closer to your wake up time, you can have the bed slowly warm up with their warm wake feature. Some people find that this creates a gentler, more natural wake up experience compared to an alarm clock alone. You can also save presets, monitor the system, and adjust everything remotely without ever touching the dock itself. All right, well, let's talk first impressions. Once everything is finally installed and you actually get into bed with the system running, one of the first things I noticed was just how little I noticed it. Once you have your fitted sheet in place and you're actually lying down, I'd say it pretty much fades into the background. Maybe you notice a little bit of texture if you're someone who's especially sensitive to changes in your mattress, but honestly, after a night or two, it becomes something I really stopped thinking about. And I think that's really important because nobody wants to feel like they're sleeping on top of bulky tubing or a thick mattress pad. To me, it felt like I was sleeping on my own mattress, just with the added benefit of being able to control the temperature. Of course, the biggest question people have is, does it actually cool you down? And for hot sleepers, the answer is a definitive yes, because this is a water-based system rather than an air-based system. It's gonna be able to deliver a consistently cooling sleep surface in a way that fans and cooling fabrics simply cannot. Most cooling mattresses, foams, and fabrics rely on a passive construction. They may feel cool when you first climb into bed, but that sensation usually fades as the materials gradually warm up. The Chilipad, on the other hand, is continually regulating your temperature settings throughout the entire process. During our testing, we found that it consistently held its target temperature throughout the night, so you continue getting that cool to the touch feeling even hours after you've fallen asleep. Of course, cooling is going to get most of the attention here. It is named Chilipad after all, but don't overlook the heating feature. If you live somewhere with cold winters or simply enjoy climbing into a warm bed, being able to preheat your sleeping surface before bedtime is a pretty nice luxury. Instead of waiting for your body heat to warm the mattress, it's already at your preferred temperature the moment you get in. The Chilipad can heat the sleeping surface to around 115 degrees Fahrenheit, so it gets pretty warm if that's what you prefer. Most people are not going to need a temperature anywhere near that high, but it is nice to have that flexibility to dial in the exact temperature that's comfortable for you. Again, this can all be scheduled automatically within the app. So if you normally go to bed at 10:30 and you have the system begin warming bed at 10 o'clock, every evening you can climb into bed without even having to think about it. One feature that's worth highlighting is just how well the Chilipad 2.0 works for couples. If you've ever shared a bed, you've probably experienced that classic temperature battle. One person is piling on blankets because they're freezing, while the other is kicking the covers off because they're too hot. With the dual zone version of the Chilipad 2.0, that problem becomes much easier to solve. Because each side of the bed has its own Hydrolayer connected to its own dock, it allows each sleeper to create a completely personalized sleep experience. That means one person can cool their side down to their preferred temperature, and the other can keep their side warmer, all without affecting each other's comfort. Now, one thing you might be thinking about is the noise of the machine, so let's talk about it. The good news is that this redesigned 2.0 dock does have a quieter operation in mind. Is it going to be completely silent? Not quite. You're going to hear a soft hum that's right around 39 to 46 decibels, which for most people is going to be relatively subtle. In fact, if you're someone who already sleeps with a fan, a white noise machine, maybe an air purifier at night, there's a good chance it's going to blend right into the background. So who should actually consider buying the Chilipad 2.0? First and foremost, hot sleepers. If overheating is the number one reason you're waking up during the night, this is one of the few products that actively addresses that problem instead of simply trying to mask it. It's also especially helpful for people who experience night sweats, whether that's related to hormones, medications, or just someone who runs naturally hot at night. In those cases, having direct control over the temperature of your sleep surface can make a huge difference in reducing those wake-ups throughout the night. Now, as I mentioned before, this is also a great option for couples who want total control of their own temperatures. And finally, this is also a strong fit for people who just enjoy optimizing their sleep. If you're someone who already pays attention to your sleep quality, your recovery, or your sleep routines, the ability to precisely dial in and even schedule your sleep temperature adds just kind of another layer of control that can help fine-tune your overall sleep environment. Now, on the other hand, if you're already pretty comfortable at night and you're someone who only rarely wakes up feeling too warm or too cold, this might not be enough of a benefit to justify the investment. Overall, I think the Chilipad 2.0 represents a very meaningful upgrade for people who struggle with temperature while they sleep. If you're interested in learning more about the Chilipad 2.0 or checking current pricing, we've included links down in the description below. And if you found this review helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more sleep product reviews. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, sleep well.